annual holiday show. As you can see the decorations, I'm in a little Christmas sweater. Go Rangers. I missed that. That was on me.
Nah, I hit the core.
I got the Yankees snow hat. I'm going to wear it like the Grinch today. No, I'm kidding. It's in my face. What's up, everybody?
I like it.
Week 15 is in the books. Not a victory Monday. We've been saying it the past couple weeks.
Might get a victory Tuesday.
The Saints make an embarrassment of Tommy DeVito and the Giants. Is the run over? We will have some thoughts on that. If you are watching this episode and this Week 15 reactions on YouTube, make sure to drop a like, comment, and do not forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, do us a big favor. All you got to do is go to the bottom, give us those ratings. They help a long, long way. It is another Monday. It's the conclusion of Week 15. And our Monday guy is here, kiiLKenny. What's up? Two moods. Give us a shout out on that. Like, would love to try that. Got to hear about it.
Again, I got a case coming for you guys. Drink Two Moods. It'll be available in pretty much every beer store in the PA area, probably within a couple of months. If you're at Penn State, go to a Penn State game, basketball game, football game, or hockey game. It's in all three stadiums. Pretty awesome. That's our golden ticket right now. But yeah, we've got black cherry, pink lemonade, and pineapple. It's a vodka seltzer, and Two Moods. There's two variations of each flavor. You got the chill at 4%. You get the thrill at 8%. And the thrill are dangerously delicious. So I'll get you guys hooked up with some of them. But yeah, man, it's my buddy's company. I've been helping him with it, and I'm very excited. This shit's really good.
Oh yeah, can't wait to try it. We have a huge slate that we're going to cover today. Obviously, a lot that happened in the NFL world yesterday. Games we're going to be covering a little bit more intensively than the others. The Cowboys and the Bills. What's going on with Dak? Can we say that the Cowboys are not the most feared team anymore? Is it the 49ers? The Eagles regain the NFC East with the Cowboys loss yesterday. Big win for the Lions, 42-17 over the Broncos. A primetime over. Like, when were we going to say that? And then obviously Jake Browning with the huge comeback win for the Bengals on our fun Saturday slate. And also, cannot wait to see the picks that Kenny has for the Monday night game of the Seahawks and the Eagles. And if you guys remember from the last time the Eagles had a Monday night game against the Chiefs, Kenny gave out Jalen Hurts to score. He also had two. That was a big catch for him. So whatever he's given us tonight for the Eagles game on Monday night, we are absolutely tailing.
Monday night narrative.
Let's kick things off here. We'll start with the Cowboys and the Bills. The Bills in a rainy game. We're going to talk a lot about the rushing yards in this game. The Cowboys could not get the running game going. Bills just attacking 266 on the ground compared to 89 for the Cowboys, and a big 31-10 win. Like I said, knocking the Cowboys out of NFC East right now, and the Eagles get that number one spot there, which would now put them in that home game and give the Dallas Cowboys probably Tampa Bay going to Tampa. What are your thoughts on this one, Kenny? Big game for James Cook. I needed Diggs to get in the end zone. My fantasy team got crushed. I'm out of the playoffs now. 61 points in a $250 buy-in league. 61 points in the biggest game of the year. Unbelievable. Diggs didn't do anything for me.
I saw that. And the team you were playing against laid an egg too. I mean, the opportunity was there.
-5 for the Chargers defense on Thursday night. I'm like, oh my God, I'm moving on. And all I have to do is win this week and then win or lose next week. And literally I have a shot to get my money back or move on to the championship and get all the big money. So I don't know. Just like, fantasy's tough. 12-man auction league. People were like, there was one dude in the comments that was like, two shitty ass teams. I'm like, dude, it's a 12-man auction league. I'm dealing with a bunch of injuries this year. The fact that I was able to get in the playoffs was good enough. But yeah, give me some thoughts on the Bills here. Dak, man, is he now out of the MVP race?
Yes, but I don't think it's because of this performance, and I think it's this in combination with just what Purdy's done the last couple of weeks. I mean, I think it's just at this point, I think it's over. It's Purdy's. I think Dak. The Cowboys needed to win this game, and Dak needed to show out. I think to stay in the conversation and make it maybe a 50-50 race between him and Purdy. But I think you can slam the door on it. It's over. Brock Purdy will win the MVP. This game didn't really surprise me. I was surprised by sort of where the line closed. I think the Bills opened at -2.5, and then it got down to, I think it closed at 1.5. So there was money on Dallas. I had no faith on Dallas coming into this game. I mean, it looked like just a pretty classic letdown spot to begin with. It was their first game on the road after 3 straight games at home. They'd been rolling. Going into Buffalo, bad weather. Buffalo's never an easy place to play to begin with against a fired up Bills team that just like needed this fucking win. So I felt pretty good about the Bills the whole way. So like, I'm not coming out of this feeling any different about my perception of the Cowboys, other than, hey, like, they clearly play a whole lot better at home than they play on the road here. For the Bills, dude, like James Cook might be the most like underappreciated guy in the league over the last 2 months. I mean, this guy has just been cooking. I didn't Didn't even try to do that, by the way. Sometimes it just happens. You're just that good. Last 5 games, averaging 137 scrimmage yards a game. Last 5 games. That's nuts. He's got 4 TDs in those 5 games. 3 of them are receiving. He has been tremendous catching the ball, out of the backfield. This dude's a wagon. He is a true workhorse number 1. And for a team that already had a lot of offensive weapons, the first half of the season when the Bills were looking clunky, they never really let any of their running backs get into a rhythm. It was a pretty even split between Cook, Latavius Murray, even Damian Harris was getting some run before he got hurt. And once Harris went down, they finally started to lean on Cook a little more. And clearly that's the spark that this team needed. So things are looking up in Buffalo. They're minus 175 to make the playoffs. So Vegas thinks they're going to get in. They've got a couple more tough games to sort of seal their fate here. But the Buffalo Bills are back. They are all the way back, and I think this is the team that if you're in the AFC, you do not want to have to play the Bills that squeak into that last wild card spot, because this team can they have the ability to beat anybody in any game. It's just, are they going to put it all together?
100% can be anybody, and they've been kicking it up in the trenches on both sides of the ball in this game. That was really the big reason why the Cowboys can get it back into it. I'm pretty sure it was they had a drive in the beginning of the third quarter. I'm pretty sure it was 14-3, which kind of put it away. And Cowboys, really this year, you would think it'd be a lot of Tony Pollard, but it's really been Dak in the passing game, and this game was just chalked. And you hit the nail on the head when we were talking about the letdown spot. I was a huge Bills fan coming into this game anyway, but you kind of just knew the Cowboys were going to get hammered. I don't really have too much. I'm not really too mad at Dak, anyone on the Cowboys side. It's really, thank God, the Bills are finally getting going, and you do not want to see this team. If you're in the AFC, especially if you're a team like Jacksonville or one of these teams faltering, and you could play one of these late wildcard teams, I do not want to see Buffalo, because they can literally beat you in any way, and they look very, very, they lost to us by 3, beat the Chiefs, and then hammer the Cowboys. So they've shown they can literally go to the toe-to-toe with anybody. They could end up giving anyone in the AFC a run. So I don't want to see it. I do not want to see this team at all.
I also understand that it was rainy and wet and this, that, and the other, whatever that case may be. But it's exciting to see for the Dallas haters that you can run all over this team if you really want to. I guess that was the game plan when it started raining. Everyone was going to run the ball, only have 94 yards in passing from Josh Allen, only 15 attempts. So yes, we knew that that was going to be the run game with the weather, but still, that's so crazy to see that we're allowing this much on the ground. And obviously what you're talking about with James Cook, still getting 2 touchdowns on the day. Whoever started him, speaking of fantasy, whoever started him in their fantasy playoffs.
Me and my dad share a team, and we needed a decent game from Cook to lock us up for next week. And at halftime, I'm like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, well, it seems like that was the case too. And if you look at the last 3 games for the Bills too, it's the Chargers and then the Patriots, and then you finish the end of the year with the Dolphins, and sitting at 8-6 now, hovering with the Bengals, the Colts, and the Texans all at 8-6. We've been talking for the past, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks now, what this race has looked like and how crazy it's going to be down the stretch and what teams are going to end up making it in. I'm just excited to see. I hope the Bills get in for narrative's sake, if they can go make a run at the Chiefs again. Obviously, with Trevor Lawrence going down last night in the concussion protocol, is CJ Beathard going to get the start against the Bears next week? Are they going to fall out of it now? They're still fighting for the division, but do you kick them out if the Texans can now move up, or even the Colts? The fact that we have AFC South teams, 3 out of the 4, in contention there to get in is wild enough to say. But I would like to see the Bills get in for sure.
And then I think the one takeaway from this, I think just from a betting perspective, I've been treating him like this for the last couple of weeks, and I'm surprised that his price just hasn't moved. But you got to start giving Josh Allen just the Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown treatment. If you're getting Josh Allen, if you see Josh Allen at plus money for a touchdown, it's an auto bet going forward. He's got 11 touchdowns in his last 12 games. He is just he's literally automatic. It's now, they're not drawing up the tush push every time they're at the 1 yard line like they do for Hurts. But again, the guy is just a touchdown machine. And I think they were hanging him at plus 140 close to game time yesterday. If you see him with a plus sign next to his name, just bet it and don't think it, because he's getting in every single game.
Yeah, yesterday's just an insane performance from him. And I know in a parlay I saw B-Matt had him. You're right with the whole taking him for plus money. It's now the from NFL and CBS here. Josh Allen has 10 games this season with a passing touchdown and rushing touchdown. That is most in a single season in NFL history. So yeah, it goes to the point. Just taking him for a rushing touchdown. Honestly, didn't think he was going to get in there, but it looks like going off the hurt standpoint, like you're saying with the goal line running back, he is that 1 yard guy. You need 1 yard, just jump over.
He could have had two because the first drive they tried to run the
should have had two.
Yeah, they could have run the QB. They tried to run the QB draw from him. He got tripped, and then they gave it to Latavius Murray. Good for Latavius Murray. But like, we can keep hammering it with Josh Allen, bro. Like, come on.
He was like he had a clear lane. It looked like he was in a high step in. He got tripped. He stumbled for a second. Then he went down at like the half-yard line, and then old ass Latavius Murray came in with the vulture.
All right, let's move to the Lions game, and then we'll start. I want to just have some quick thoughts here on Brock Purdy and this race. But the Lions on Saturday night. Let's talk about that fun Saturday slate, Vikings, Bengals to kick it off. Then we get a little weird one with the Steelers and the Colts. I want to highlight that before we jump to the Lions. That hit on Michael Pittman was just ugly enough. I understand, like it's a bang play. It's tough to let up with the momentum going for that diving hit there. But I mean, I was watching the game, listening to the announcers talk about it, and they're like, it's not like Gardner Minshew gave him any help. Like, he kind of left him out there to dry. He dove, he caught it, he had the ball, and then just the weird way that he got his neck in that position, I'm just surprised that he was able to walk off and get himself up off of that. But that was a kind of a weird game there, 30-13 for the Colts in that win, moving them now to 8-6, like we were just talking about in that race in the AFC South. And then we get the big Lions game, 42-17. Sam Laporta carrying Jared Goff. First since Matt Stafford in 2014 for this Lions franchise, 5 touchdowns. Something also to take note of there, 5 touchdowns and less than 300 yards. That's the big thing that stood out for me. And then Gibbs. This is our pick. This is the guy that we were all hype about. We finally got our guy, trading away Swift, and, well, we see him getting in the end zone, 100 yards on the day. You had your Amon-Ra St. Brown call. What'd you like out of this game?
Another one that I just didn't really surprise me. I think this closed at 4.5. And again, I didn't get a whole lot right this weekend, but I feel like just this game, the whole week I thought the Lions were going to just decimate Denver. And I feel like a lot of people, just because you've got the Lions coming off a couple of weak performances, you've got Broncos country on sort of the heater that they were on, but just this lined up for what I believe was going to be a Detroit ass whooping. I think just from sort of just both situations that both teams were coming in, like the same way that the Cowboys, it came off like a letdown spot. This felt like a get right spot for Detroit and a letdown spot for Denver. And then on top of that, just like schematically, it couldn't have worked out any better for the Lions. The Broncos run mostly cover 3 on defense, and that's the one defense Goff has just for his entire career has just totally picked apart. And that was why I like the St. Brown 25 each half. It's just like the middle of the field is going to be wide open. He's going to feed him, and Laporta end up feasting. They combine for 12 catches, 170 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Like, yeah, that'll probably get it done.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people like on Twitter and some of these ads were buying into the Broncos, like at +5, I think it was. And they were kind of making it scrappy to begin with. And then once Laporta got in for the first touchdown, like Goff got comfortable and the floodgates opened up. And this is kind of what you see with the Lions, because then you have like the Jahmyr Gibbs thing. And I hate to go back to college, but like Bill O'Brien has to look at what he does now in the NFL. And like, damn, I just misused the fuck out of this guy when I had him at Bama, because he just gets the ball every single time with the Lions and just goes off. This is a big statement win for those guys, especially with, like, I mean, they're money towns, just Motown. They always handle the business in there. But just going forward, I think the Lions, they look nasty on defense as well. They were flying around, physical on defense, which is a part of them I feel like is underrated. And just going to playoffs, getting moving like this, the Lions I don't think they're touching the Eagles or the 49ers, and I don't think they're really touching the Cowboys either. But anything can happen in the playoffs, and they're still making sure we have them there, making sure they're going to have their say. And I ain't done sleeping on the Lions yet.
Yeah, you're right about that.
It shows you how powerful like recency bias is, though, when people evaluate teams. Like I was at one of my family parties on Saturday when this game was about to start, and like all my older cousins are there. You know, the whole family's gamblers. We all sports bet. We're all in. We've all got fantasy. It's just it's that kind of family. And like every single one of my cousins liked Denver. Like every one of them thought Denver money line, Denver with the points.
Really?
And I was like,
I was hearing a lot.
Every single Denver was. I think Denver just felt like, you know, at least who I was talking, Denver felt popular. And I thought the Lions were gonna come in and steamroll them. It's just like it. And the streak Denver's on, man, the way that they want to win games, they want to get a lead. They want to give Javonte Williams the ball 80 times. They want to grind out a win. They don't have the firepower to compete in a shootout in a game like this. And the second Detroit's up 14, I mean, the game is over, because there's no answer for it.
Yeah, and you have Lions now seeking first division title since 1993. Also, something I want to go back on from a couple weeks ago, where I said that the Eagles are far and away, on top of the Lions. I think the Lions, at least from my point of view, are starting to close that gap a little bit from other teams. Defense looks insane. Aiden Hutchinson, we can't shine more light on that guy and what he's done for that defense. I think they are, at least from my perspective, I think the Lions are starting to close that gap as one of those top teams that can really be deadly and scary in the playoffs. And I don't know, I mean, they'd get that they won't get the bye, but they get the division, they get the home game.
Exactly.
And we saw how lights out that crowd was on
Saturday night. As long as they
night.
can play at Motown, bro. You know what I mean?
Lions look good, and that's something that we definitely have to look towards, especially when we get to the playoffs. You look at their remaining schedule, it's 2 divisional games. You go in Minnesota, in Dallas on that Saturday night after Christmas at 8:15, and then they're home to end the year against the Vikings. So 2 divisional matchups there. We don't know if it's going to be Dobbs.
God, go fucking Lions.
I mean, that's going to be a fun game too. Like
I might put a jersey. I might put a jersey on for that bitch.
I mean, that's going to be. You talk about Kenny. You started that narrative a couple of weeks ago of like what we're going to see down the stretch of these regular season games that feel like playoff games. That's one right there. Cowboys on December 30th, 8:15. Cowboys hosting the Lions. That's a easy playoff game right there. And see if the Cowboys can actually, I guess get the start of what playoff, game time would feel like, because last year obviously getting shit on by the 49ers. All right, and then let's touch on before I go to Brock Purdy, let's touch on that Vikings game and that the Bengals game, the huge comeback for the Bengals, winning this one 27-24. Big win there, and it was kind of cold, a little ugly game. The weather hasn't been that great in Cincinnati these past couple weeks, especially getting cold like we saw last week where Burrow's putting Browning's family up in the box in the suite. But how about the highlight of the game, the highlight catch with 46 seconds to go in the game to tie the game from T. Higgins. Let's also remember, this is a guy that's going to go into free agency this year. And as a Giants fan, I'm saying to these guys, go get a standout receiver. Look at Ayuk as well. Look at Ayuk as well, who's going into free agency as well. Can they get these 2 guys? What did you like from this game? Jake Browning screaming, throwing his helmet. You saw the clip.
Love that shit.
Stop. You wish you didn't fucking cut me. Stop fucking cutting me. So I like the energy there. Maybe they found their guy to make a little push in the playoffs.
Dude, you got to just, not a game we need to talk about a whole lot, but we keep talking about the Bengals, and you just have to give credit. 3-0 without Burrow when they were written off as dead by me, by literally everybody, and they just keep finding ways to win. Now, I don't want to give them like all the credit in the world. I mean, it was a tremendous comeback. They shouldn't have put themselves in that position to begin with. I mean, this Minnesota team just looked bad. Nick Mullins did not look good. He was throwing it up really the one play to Addison was just the most brain dead throw of all time that ended up just working out in his favor. I mean, like Mullins looked bad. Cincinnati should have won this game comfortably, but again, man, 3-0 without Burrow, 8-6. They're sitting there right in the thick of the playoff hunt. Got to give credit to Zach Taylor for just revamping this offense and sort of changing their offensive style to at least give Browning, I think, a chance to compete here. So good for Cincinnati. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but they've done everything they needed to do in Burrow's absence to stay alive and keep the people of Cincy excited.
Nah, for real, Mullins got to wait. I think on that same drive we're talking about the touchdown, that was the pick 6 that got called back too. So he was just he was on some bullshit. But I actually want to tip my cap to Jake Browning because the last 2 weeks of winning games, and I'm like, yo, look at Joe Mixon. Like, it kind of shows Joe Mixon stepping up. But when they were down, like, he started finding, Jake Brown started finding Jamar Chase, started finding T. Higgins, and actually making throw after throw. On the final drive, the one where T. Higgins made the crazy catch, there was like a second or third, like a medium hit T. Higgins on the corner the play before that. And he was just putting the ball in the right place, finding Jamar Chase over the middle. Like, I got to tip my cap to Jake Browning. And then T. Higgins just showing he's different. Like, I feel like there was that interview, I think it was at a camp or maybe in the preseason when he was trying to talk about, like, they were saying, do you think you're number one? There was kind of dialogue going on, which I hate when they do that. But I think ever since that happened, T. Higgins kind of had that chip on his shoulder, and good to see him show out because he going to get paid. He about to get paid real soon.
And I don't know if it's going to be the Bengals.
I don't know either.
On that. I don't think it's going to be the Bengals. And you look too, like I'm liking the continued usage. I know it was a little bit on the weaker side yesterday from Saturday from Joe Mixon. another touchdown for him. He's got 8 on the year. He got 4 in the last 4 games. You look at another running back that is exceeding expectations this year as far as getting in the end zone. That's Raheem Mostert. 19 touchdowns on the year with 2 yesterday. And that's the most that he's had in his entire career. And he's now doubled that with 19 this year. Crazy to see. And of course, couldn't happen to a hotter team right now with the Miami Dolphins without Tyreek Hill yesterday. Something crazy to take note of from, the running back side in the end zone. Not seeing a lot yesterday. We saw Bijan kind of laying a duck. We saw Saquon kind of laying a duck. Obviously, the Giants weren't there. Some things I want to...
How did you feel about every time your boy got sacked yesterday? The Saints,
oh my God.
the Saints
That shit was so funny.
That was so funny. Just be thankful. Just be thankful that you played the Saints in 2023 and you didn't play like the Jonathan Vilma Saints because I guarantee you during Bounty Gate, man, they would have had the fattest bounty on Tommy DeVito. He would have left yesterday, and you would have left that game in a body bag if we were playing some old school football.
I mean, it was like in the third quarter he already had 7 sacks on him. So it just tough to see. Obviously, we know it's going to be the same thing over and over. What we see from the draft out of the Giants the past 5 years, it feels like it almost feels more like 10 years. Draft an offensive lineman, maybe get a receiver. I mean, you look at the receiving core for the Giants. It's Darius Slayton. You got Hyatt and Robinson. Waller came back. He had a good 30-yard catch. That was 30 of his 40 yards yesterday in his return. I mean, I understand it's Tommy DeVito. I understand the line may be a little bit banged up, not having the starters in there, Evan Neal's not in there. I understand it. Like, it's getting just tougher and tougher to watch.
But like, I think the only thing that's been, I think, wrong about the Tommy DeVito run that he's been on is that it's given this like not even semblance of hope, but like this idea that maybe this Giants team like isn't awful. I'm not doing this to shit all over the Giants, but like the team stinks. Like from top to bottom, the team is absolutely atrocious. Your offensive line is garbage, and you've got Darius Slayton playing like 90% of the snaps every single game. Like
they classify him as the wide receiver 1.
That's not that. Darius Slayton is your wide receiver 1, and you've got Tommy DeVito at quarterback. Like the fact that he's won a single game is miraculous. And I think we said on a couple shows ago, like, yeah, the whole year for the Giants has been a clear disappointment. But like, I think expectations coming into the year were just wrong. I mean, and I almost like, it's weird saying this as an Eagles fan, but I almost like feel bad for Dable almost because like you guys outkicked your coverage so much last year. You had no business being a playoff team last year. You guys squeak into the playoffs. And then I think that plus the Daniel Jones contract in the offseason, I think it just gave like the perception of like, hey, this team might be pretty good this year. And coming into the year, you still had the youngest team in football, like by far, like youngest team in football by far. Pre-injury, I know it hasn't looked, at times it's looked pretty bad, but like I didn't have a problem with the Daniel Jones contract when you guys gave it to him. Like, I mean, it's, in real time, it sounded like astronomical. You give it a year, and as more quarterbacks get more contracts, it's going to feel like cheaper and cheaper. Now, he didn't look that great before the injury. Then he blows his knee out, and then I'm sure, second guessing the contract from that. But like, I thought, like, if I was a Giants fan, I would have been happy with the Daniel Jones contract. I just think like you gotta have your quarterback locked in. I think he's good enough to build around, but I think the expectations on this team were misguided coming into the year, and then it's clearly gone as bad as humanly possible.
Well, I think you're right with solidifying your quarterback. That was the biggest thing with my take on the contract. I didn't have a problem with the contract because now for me as a fan watching these drafts year after year, it's, are they going to draft another quarterback? Are they going to waste another top 5, top 10 pick on another quarterback? And now that's even still a question that we're asking this year after the contract. I like the contract so much because not really for the money, but because for the next 4 years, they actually have a solidified quarterback, and then they can go in the draft or in the offseason, in training camp, they can focus on everything else but a new quarterback coming into a new system, got to learn with a new coaching staff. This was the second year using the same coaching staff with Kafka, and you got Wink on defense, you got Joe up top, and you got Dable at head coach. I mean, everything was aligning for the possibility of having a quarterback for the future. Not saying franchise, but a quarterback for the future, and focus on some other things like the offensive line, like the receivers. And now, again, we're just looking at this like, well, Tommy DeVito's here, and we're hearing last week from Shannon Sharp on First Take telling Stephen A., well, they should just put the QB job up for grabs next year and have Tommy DeVito and Daniel Jones compete for it. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I understand it with going 3-0.
Fine, but like, okay, let them compete. okay, now it's over. Daniel Jones wins. He's your quarterback. Like there is no competition. Daniel Jones is 1 billion times better than Tommy DeVito. I don't care what the record shows. Like, it's just you have to just, what are your eyes telling you? Daniel Jones is better. And again, not to turn this into like this whole like defense of Daniel Jones, but again, I just don't see how he was in any way like set up for success with the makeup and overall construction of this offense this year. I mean, hear me out. Take Daniel Jones and put him at quarterback for the Bengals instead of Jake Browning. Like, I think the Bengals are still probably winning these games. Like, you know, there's nothing for him to work with. The offensive line is awful. Your receiving core stinks. You have a hobbled Saquon who is just not what he was in his rookie year before all these injuries. And it's just, the only way that I think Daniel Jones, like the only way this offense was going to have any success this year was, I think, Daniel Jones essentially doing it all himself, which leaves the Daniel Jones mistakes, which is his downfall. And it's just, you get this negative spiral effect. So, you know, I'll say that I'm happy that I'm not a Giants fan, so I don't have to deal with these hypotheticals. I'm just so incredibly thankful that I get to root for like a real football team as opposed to whatever they're doing up there in MetLife. But aside from that, you know, it'll be a fun offseason.
Yeah, I guess there's something to root for. I'm seeing now like, oh, go get Jaden Daniels or go get anybody else. Go look at everybody in this QB class coming in. I'm like, I don't really know if that's go get Caleb Williams. I don't know if that's drafting a
some
quarterback.
motherfuckers who can kick step really good and get some motherfuckers who can catch the ball.
But also, it's almost like this team is just the injury bug. I mean, lost Graham Gano. Randy Bullock had to get pulled yesterday because he had a hamstring problem doing a kickoff. And then you have
Randy, baby.
You have the punter. The punter, the Scottish Hammer, has to go kick a field goal to give them their 6th point, their second field goal of the game. After Randy in the first drive kicked a 56-yarder, which was hype. And this is now they were driving. Obviously, they had that running into the kicker that gave them that first down. But as they were driving, they show on the screen a graphic where 21 games now, the Giants have not had a first drive touchdown. 21 games. It just goes to show a team that can't start with a lead by getting a touchdown certainly is going to have to claw from behind, and this team is a team that cannot claw from behind, even though they have a good enough defense to get some stops. I mean, the defense is doing it all. Wink's doing it all. I don't want to turn this into a Giant show, but it's just frustrating year after year. I also just have to mention, like, maybe I'm just so much of a homer. Maybe I'm just so stupid. I genuinely thought that the Giants had a shot to win that game against the Saints. It's not like the Saints are anything crazy, but let's also not forget, Chris Olave was out yesterday too. So, like, you get their top weapon out. Alvin Kamara wasn't doing anything crazy. Defense was...
the Saints, I think the Saints stink. The Saints stink.
They had a shot. They certainly had a shot to win that game. It should not have been kind of what a blowout was. And I guess now, like, I guess a lot of people are going to be the haters and say that this whole Tommy DeVito ride and, you know, is over. But Sean Stellato, I like seeing the suit and getting inducted into the National Italian Sports Hall of Fame wearing that suit. He's the guy. So we'll give him the fun shout, and the DeVito family the fun shout of yesterday's game. But also that hit going down was crazy. Manny was talking to me. He's like, he definitely tried to sell that he got knocked out for that hit. I was pissed off when he got hit like that. But it's a football play. I do want to touch briefly on this again. I keep stalling before getting into Brock Purdy. The Panthers, like, it was definitely a headline yesterday because they had nobody in the stadium, and you could get tickets from this game as low as 50 cents to $5 to get in the door to go watch the Carolina Panthers somehow win on a game-winning field goal. Big ol' Eddie getting the win for them, 9-7 over the Falcons. A terrible game for the Falcons to lose. Still in, as surprising as it sounds, the worst division in football. The Falcons still have a shot to win that division and possibly get into the playoffs. Just funny, very funny stuff to see where I'm seeing now what 2015 at this time looked like with Cam Newton and a sold-out crowd in Carolina, and now we're looking at barely anybody walking in those doors. Just 20 minutes before kickoff was the big headline there for them.
I'll say this just in the slightest defense, like it was arguably the worst weather game in the NFL of the year. I mean, it was pissing sideways from an hour before kickoff to hours after kickoff. I mean, the weather forecast was as bad as it gets. I'm kicking myself for not just unloading everything I have on this under. I mean, I thought it was going to go under. I think it was at 33.5. I'm just sitting there comparing it to, like, well, you're telling me that Patriots Steelers over under was 30.5, and that was good weather. You're going to give me Falcons Panthers at 32.5 in a rainstorm. I just, like, yeah, obviously it's a lot easier to say that after it goes under, but, like, I think if you look at the entire board yesterday and you look at all the outcomes, like, that's the one you're sitting here going, why How do we miss that?
Why didn't I do that?
Yeah, why didn't I do that?
Like just scrolling past that on FanDuel. Why the hell did I not click under on that?
But yeah, it's never good when you're fresh off drafting your supposedly franchise quarterback at #1 overall, and in like week 15 you can't fill 25% of your stadium. That's probably not a good omen for where your team's headed.
Yeah, and also I think you brought up a good point. We were weeks ago when we were talking about Jordan Love and your take on that, and their QB room and their QB staff, and able to develop young quarterbacks. And you kind of said a quote that was similar to Jordan Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre. Same thing here, what you were saying with Bryce Young, where maybe if you don't just throw a young kid fresh out of Alabama, best team in football, in college football, to a team that needs help in every single position, always, and on the team, and now, 2-12, he's getting banged up, not having good games, and now people are talking about the comparisons of the leading into this week that Tommy DeVito, an undrafted guy, has better stats than Bryce Young. I mean, I hate that narrative.
Especially when you had to trade your best weapon even to get him.
Right.
Like you're coming in and you're giving him Adam Thielen as his #1 receiver. Like, yeah, I would like to imagine that DJ Moore would probably be very useful to Bryce Young, right? Maybe even Christian McCaffrey 2 years ago. Right. It's like any offensive weapon this team has had, they've gotten rid of on whatever journey that they're currently on. And then you have Bryce Young with no offensive line. Again, not to make too many excuses, like Bryce Young, just situation aside, has been horrific. Now, I'm not completely out on him. I don't think I think the ship has probably sailed on him turning it around to the point of being a full-blown franchise quarterback. Like, I forget, I was listening to some show and they said, like, if you were to, like, right now, what is Bryce Young's ceiling right now? And someone was like, Baker Mayfield right now is probably Bryce Young's ceiling. It's like, man, that sounds way too accurate, actually. But again, he's been awful, but they have no line, they have no offense. Frank Reich was abysmal. I mean, this team was just destined for failure. Yeah. It's just, I think if you're a Panthers fan coming into the year, you're going to win like 3 games. At least let the kid like just flash it 2 or 3 times, just so you have something to maybe build off of and take into the offseason. And like, it hasn't happened yet. There hasn't been a single game where you've watched him for 4 straight quarters and went, yeah, that's our guy.
Nah, yeah.
Well, you briefly touched on Baker Mayfield there. I just want to talk a little bit about him. And can we finally say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have found their guy? After Tom Brady's gone, Baker's turned into a leader. We have Phil Simms talking yesterday on CBS in the postgame show, saying that this kid has grown out of his shell. He has matured. He's developed. 4 touchdowns, 381 yards yesterday. And I think we can confidently say that they have found their guy. And another quick thing on Mike Evans, another touchdown for him, just solidifying a Hall of Fame career, now putting him in the tied with Devontae Adams all time in touchdowns. Unbelievable. Even though he didn't have a big day, it was all Chris Godwin. In the Chris Godwin, his wife, from both Penn Staters, for you, Mr. Kenny, Penn State alumni there, his wife last week complaining about Chris Godwin's usage, and now he gets 10 catches and 155 yards. A little quick note there, that was a little weird, but he gets it done there, and the Bucs get a big win there, 7-7, which again we still talk about this NFC South and what this race is going to be for who's going to end up having that division crown and who's going to get that home game. I think we can still say probably most likely is going to be the Buccaneers in that situation.
Buccaneers.
And I do want to now head to Brock Purdy now and just talk about this 49ers game. We saw the MVP type of game that in the dome. Let's also talk about that too, because Dak was in the bad weather. In a dome in Arizona, he has the 4 touchdowns, less than 250, but we are not going to let that outweigh what we saw from Christian McCaffrey yesterday. 72 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, and also 115 on the ground and a touchdown. I want to make note of this too. Christian McCaffrey to score 1 touchdown yesterday was minus 320. For 2 touchdowns, he was plus 130. And to put that all into perspective, most guys are plus 130 to score 1 touchdown, and he had 3 total yesterday. This guy's crazy. If it wasn't such of a goddamn QB award that I'm never going to stop saying, Christian McCaffrey's your MVP of football. Guaranteed.
I think the problem that he faces is that, like, the underlying stats for Purdy are just so good. Like especially the EPA. I feel like, the overall like efficiency rating, Purdy's numbers are just so astronomically off the charts. It's hard to discredit him. Now, you can make the clear argument of like, yeah, well, his numbers are off the charts and he's so incredibly efficient because he's surrounded by guys like Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and all that's true. But you're still gonna put the ball in their hands. Like, I'm kind of torn here, man, because like I want to find a way to discredit the guy because I agree. I think McCaffrey probably should be the MVP, but it's just not going to happen. It's gonna go to Purdy. And at some point you got to just tip your cap. I mean, he's doing what he needs to do, and he's like doing it exceptionally well. Just the numbers are what they are. So it's his award to lose. I think he's sitting like minus 200 right now. I think other than like the Cowboys winning out and destroying Detroit and like going on some miraculous run here, I think this is Purdy's to lose. And like Purdy he's had a sizable gap on McCaffrey the entire year, and just with a couple weeks left, I just don't know what scenario would have to happen in order for McCaffrey to leapfrog him at this point. I don't think it's possible. I think it's in the bag. It's Brock Purdy's.
Yeah, like, and McCaffrey's flowers will come in a wave. Like, I hate to say it, but like, let's say the 49ers win the Super Bowl, then people are finally like, oh my God, like, look at the impact that McCaffrey has. Like, 3 years ago, we were looking at how long can Deebo Samuel play football because they're using him as a conventional running back. And you see what Deebo Samuel's doing this year. And then same with Ayuk. It's like back when Deebo Samuel was a running back, Ayuk's the only guy split out wide, and like he's just getting double teamed and just fully focused. Now you see what he's been doing out in space. So I think Chris McCaffrey's flowers, especially, I mean, usually how it goes for running backs, will come in a whole different way. They win, and then everyone's like, oh yeah, well, if we didn't have this guy won't be able to use in this way. So, I mean, we see it with McCaffrey, but it'll come in different ways for him.
And I think, too,
100%.
If you're looking statistically for Brock Purdy, and that's what all these awards are going to end up coming down to for the MVP, I mean, right now, NFL on CBS tweeting this yesterday, he ranks number 1 in everything across the board, rating, touchdown interception ratio, touchdown per attempt, yards per attempt, completions, wins. I mean, first in everything. So I guess if you're going to look at that statistically, he's going to get it. And I know I guess I have to backtrack a little bit from last week where I said the league's fucked if Brock Purdy gets it. I think what most people are doing, including myself, is, and I saw some announcers during the games, calling the games, talking about it yesterday too, just kind of downplaying Brock Purdy because he's that Mr. Irrelevant guy. And I think, at least for me, if he was I'm not saying top draft pick, but if he wasn't the last fucking pick in the draft and he was putting this up, I still think people would be having a better outcome and better analysis, or I guess take on his performance the past 2 seasons, coming in last year, leading him to 12 straight wins, getting them into the NFC Championship game, obviously getting hurt and getting beat down against the Eagles in the link, but you look at it this year, I think we can confidently say they got to be the top dog of the NFL. Got to be the scariest team. And I'm curious to ask you, if you had to rank your, I don't want to say top 3, like top 5, if you could, top 5 teams in the NFL, where would you kind of go for that?
It would be in no particular. It would be San Fran, and then below that, it's in no particular order: Eagles, Cowboys.
Do you put the Chiefs in there? You got to, right?
I think you got to put. I would go Baltimore first. I think I'd go
and then
Baltimore.
Miami.
I still think I'm taking the Chiefs. I think I would take Chiefs 5.
And then make Miami 6. Yeah, I mean, it's tough down the stretch to see that. I mean, especially with how the playoff picture is going to end up going, we're going to see the buys. And again, as we can kind of move towards tonight's big game, and if the Eagles can still remain on the top of the NFC East here with the Cowboys loss, let's briefly give a little preview here in tonight's game in Seattle. The Jalen Hurts Philadelphia Eagles, after back-to-back bullshit losses for the Eagles in the gauntlet of the schedule, as everyone's been saying. We're in Seattle tonight, and what Kenny called last week as the where the Seahawks and the 12th man smell blood in the water from last week's performance, and Jalen Hurts flying separately from the team because he's sick. He doesn't want to get anybody else sick. That's making me think, we all talk about, and I told Manny this as we got started, we all talk about each week reacting to the Eagles and how they want to establish the run, and it doesn't work. Beat these guys vertically. Throw the ball downfield. And this week, with Hurts not feeling too great, I don't think he's going to be doing a lot of out-of-the-pocket movement. I think he's going to be more, if he's going to throw the ball, he's going to sit in the pocket with that offensive line, hopefully make some better decision-making. But I think it's going to be a rushing game for DeAndre Swift. I have him over in 58.5 rushing yards. I think it's up to 59.5 now. I'm also taking Swift to score. I'm going to take DK Metcalf for over 61.5 yards because he's a Eagle killer, and I don't know how you're going to give me 61.5 yards for him. Beat him vertically, catch and run. And then I have DK to score. So also, if you're going to parlay, for me, what I'm at least doing is DK and Swift to score, which is plus 640. I think that's great value and great odds for that.
I got no problem with that at all. I'm with you. I like Swift. I think you have to find a way to finally established the run a little bit tonight. I mean, just his overall volume has been abysmal, especially like early in games. I feel like I haven't seen a single first drive where he's getting 5 or 6 carries. I think they finally tried to do that tonight. Seattle really can't stop anything. Their run D is bad. Their pass D is bad. I think you have to, regardless of what kind of shape Hurts is in. I'm going forward assuming he's playing. I feel like they've been leaning to it sounds like he's going to play, but they're really laying it on thick with how sick he is. So maybe we're going to get, a flu game, if you will. But I think you have to rely on DeAndre Swift tonight. So I'm with you. I like his over there. I'm probably going to mess around with maybe the 25 rush yards each half. That's sitting at like around plus 190. I don't know if I'm going to go near the touchdown just yet because I want to see if Hurts is going to play. I still think if Hurts is objectively very, very sick and he's out there gutting it out, like they wouldn't play him if they weren't going to still do the tush push if they get down into the red zone. So I still think his touchdown upside is going to be there. I was banking on his touchdown price to trickle down maybe with some of this news, and it just hasn't. I mean, still sitting at minus 120. If that gets anywhere close to even money, you already know what I'm going to do. And I'm hoping that again the flu narrative throughout the afternoon maybe pushes that down just a bit. But otherwise, I'm with you on Swift. I think it has to be a DeAndre Swift game. On Seattle, I haven't bet a single thing yet, but I think I feel like Smith and Jigba should be in line for a lot of good work tonight too. It's just those quick slants over the middle. I mean, we just like that soft zone we play. It's just we're food right now on those quick slants. I mean, every team knows how dominant our D line is, and their game plan around that is just get the ball out as fast as humanly possible. And if that's the play in here, then it's going to be a lot of JSN. So I think if I was going to lean anybody on the Seahawks side of the ball, I think Smith and Jigba is probably where I would start my build around here. But the line's sitting at 3.5. I'll tell you this, I was way more confident on the Eagles like 5 days ago than I am sitting here today. I still think we get it done tonight, but I'm not going to be hammering, Eagles spread, if you will. I think this might be one we may have to grind out, but I'm confident enough that we get it done. But I wish I felt a little better here. The only thing I'll say is I know that Seahawks might smell blood in the water, but there's blood in the water there too. I mean, exactly. There's two teams here that are both coming off ass whoopings from Dallas and San Fran. I mean, it's just at that point it's a wash.
Yeah, it's like the thing that really scares me is like the Seahawks playing at home in a bounce back spot, kind of like for pride. I mean, they're still in it, but like really the pride thing for a team like that is just scary. And I really look to see how we can get this late season offense going for Brian Johnson. Any adjustments, and it has to be Swift tonight with all the things we're doing. Hurts going, but maybe not. Maybe we just sprinkle in some more passes. Hopefully, we see more continuity. One thing I'm really looking out for is that the story with the defense, though. Patricia, I guess, is taking over. I guess the play calling for the side still has the title, quote unquote, but. I mean, if you look at the halftime adjustments in these last couple of games, besides the games where we've gotten scored on like 6 and 4 straight drives, you could make a case that you don't know what's going on in the locker room, but maybe we go in a half and Patricia just snap it on the side, and then it becomes really his defense that's being ran out there. So I'm going to be really interested to see how the defense gets run. I guess to see if it's really full Patricia. And going down the stretch, before I even get to that, I wonder if was the side that bad. Or is it a thing where these guys just don't hear him? Like maybe they hear Patricia more because of maybe his tenure in the past. But I mean, he doesn't really. I mean, you could dig into his past outside of the game. He doesn't seem to be. I don't know. But
it's a bold change for a 10-win team to make in Week 15, right? So I mean, I can imagine they do this unless the ownership and the GM like fully believe in this, and also they know that the defense is gonna respond to this. I mean, there was a quote I think from Byard about how like. The players were going to do like their own scouting and they were going to take a little more ownership coming into this. And it's just like, yeah, that's all well and good. But like, why do they have to do that? Like what? Like, I thought that quote from Byard, who again has been on the team for like 5 minutes. I'm like, if the new guy is already like, we got to change things up. Like that's not very good.
Well, I was also, Manny and I were talking before we got started, and over under at 45.5, we were talking about the primetime over where the Lions just blew that out of the water. And Manny had actually said, well, here's your primetime under tonight. Do you have a thought there with the primetime unders that we've seen? We got a Monday Night Football game tonight. Big primetime game, big spot for both teams, obviously, like you said. 45.5, obviously not talking in if we're going to bet it or not, but just a take on if we think that's going to be the under or if we think we're going to see a lot of scoring like that Thursday night game where Dallas and Seattle both put up a bunch of points.
I mean, and we all know what the data was. Going back a few weeks on primetime unders, but I think we've at least corrected that in recent weeks. The primetime games have gotten better here. Again, I want to just sort of follow the weather report in Seattle. I mean, coming in, it looked like it could be pretty ugly. I feel like it's gotten a little better. I need to double check the weather there, but I just think like depending on what kind of Jalen Hurts you get, this offense has to go out there and score 30 tonight. The one thing that this team just hasn't done this year is like we really haven't beaten the shit out of anybody. And you go back to last year, man. I mean, like we had our foot on people's throats every single week. I mean, there was blowout potential every week, and I feel like we've been almost like just too methodical in how we've approached our offense. So I'm hoping this is a game that we go out there and just slaughter them. So if I had to lean aside, I think I would lean the over. I trust our team to go out there and score some points tonight. And I don't know what to make of the new wave Matt Patricia run Philadelphia Eagles defense. So I don't have too much of an opinion on the total, but if I had to go one way, I think I would go the over. I'm not going to let the primetime, early season primetime under trend talk me off of it.
Yeah, and obviously you're I don't even know how heavily favored they are. Do you know that? Like Eagles money line price, and
it's three. I think it's 3.5.
It is 3.5 in money line. So that's what they're 285. I think minus 285.
Yo, just
like
a thought.
It's not that bad. It's minus 190.
Oh, okay.
Just a thought. Like I don't know if this could really be a look, but I saw Dallas Goedert hanging at 310, and when I watched that game, the Seahawks played against the Cowboys. Jamal Adams is good, and Diggs is pretty good, but they were like going at that matchup, and there was a chippy matchup. They were going at that matchup, and Dallas Goedert coming off that injury hasn't. I mean, I would love to see Dallas Goedert get the end zone, get going. 310 is a good price.
310 is a good price.
I might take a look at that.
Yeah, 100%.
I like that. I like that a whole lot.
And last thing before we let you go here, Kenny, is we need some brief thoughts here on our Thursday night shit show. I know it was a couple days ago, but you finally, all the hate that you've, not even the hate, but just the facts that you've stated in this Chargers team all year long, the Justin Herbert era, and what Staley has done. Well, now there is finally no more Brandon Staley, 63-21. They asked him in the press conference after the game, do you think you'll be coaching this group of guys tomorrow? And he said it's not something that we can talk about right now. We got to just get ready for New England.
What's he gonna say? Like no.
And you got
no.
Stephen A. Smith on the day after on First Take, just explaining that this guy is not a leader of men. He cannot lead a group of guys, and he lost that locker room 63-21. It was 42-0 at half. What an unbelievable Thursday game that we all thought, including myself. I mean, I shouldn't even say we all thought, but me thought that this game was going to be an absolute shitter. I mean, no one's going to score. Apparently, everybody got in the end zone. We see so many defensive touchdowns. The Chargers look just so dead. And I say it every week, 5-9 as a record right now after 14 games does not show how piss poor this team has not only been run and how they actually play. What do you got on this game?
I mean, the Chargers stink. If you're a Chargers fan, I think you had to watch that game and almost be excited because you're like, okay, this is the game that they'll finally fire Staley, because I'm sure if you're a fan, you've been calling for it now for like the past 2 years, and it's like, okay, a 40-point ass whooping to the Raiders on primetime. That's got to be the final. That's got to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and it was. You talk about losing the locker room. I still believe he lost the locker room when they botched the tie game against the Raiders that would have put them both in the playoffs 2 years ago. So I think from that point on, they could have fired him that night, and they waited a year and a half too long, and you get what you deserve. So the real question is, who's now going to go to LA? Is it
Belichick?
Is it Belichick? Is it Jim Harbaugh? I'm very curious to see who they get here. I mean, Chargers ownership is just cheap. I don't see them shelling out the dollars required to go get a name like that. But at the same time, you've got a franchise quarterback that has been, not him himself, but like the team around him has been nothing but a disappointment really since he's entered the league. So I don't know what you do with this team, but man, that Brandon Staley performance was truly legendary. And I love questions like that in the press conference, because again, like what's
he supposed to say?
Hey, to Tom Rinaldi, ESPN, do you think you'll be the coach of this team next year? Hey, Tom, thank you for asking. No, I don't know if you saw the score tonight, but we lost by 75. I'm probably getting fired. Like, I think if he said that, his public perception would have like skyrocketed. Just embrace it. Be like, nah, man. Be like, I'm chalked.
Yeah, I'm done. And I think you bring up the point of the tie. A lot of the stuff that I was seeing after the game was when people saying that it stemmed from that abysmal blowout where they had a 27-point lead against the Jags and they blew that, and they're all starting to say that it really stemmed from that, because what coach is going to allow to blow that lead after halftime, to have one half to have Trevor Lawrence and the Jags be able to come back from that. Just unbelievable that we're seeing this, and we have to see poor Easton Stick come out for the Chargers. I mean, I've seen all the analogies from the NHL saying, "Oh, he picked the wrong sport. He should be in the NHL, the Easton Stick."
Shout out to Antonio Pierce too, because he was prepped to win this game 90-0. When he ran the double pass, the announcers didn't like it, but I fucking loved that shit. And just the way you said he should have got fired with the Raiders game, like it was almost, he was so ready for the cinematic, like I'm gonna get this motherfucker fired tonight. Shout out to Antonio Pierce, because I like that shit.
Yeah, I have nothing wrong with what Antonio Pierce did too, because you look at sort of like the dichotomy of the two coaches here. You've got Brandon Staley on the one sideline, who is just essentially watching the clock tick on his coaching tenure with LA, and then on the other side you have Antonio Pierce, who is fighting to be the permanent head coach going forward. And it's very clear, man, that team fucking loves him, and he needed a statement, a massive statement dub to, I think, lock himself in. He'll be the coach of this team next year. He deserves it. I thought they were going to go for the record. You know, the Raiders essentially they're playing for nothing other than pride, and they're clearly playing for their coach. They want him to be the coach. And I think the record for points scored in a game, I think it was 70, or I think it was 70. Did the Dolphins break that when they?
I think it was 70. I'm pretty sure.
So like that was within reach. And when they were like, they didn't take their foot off the gas. There was one point, I think it was like, I wish I had it in front of me, but it was late. It was either late third quarter, early fourth quarter. They're up by like 50, and 1st and 10, they threw like a quick pass to Devontae, and they're like, "Whoa, they're still throwing." I'm like, dude, they are going for the record. Like, again, when you look back on the Raiders season, they're gonna have there's not gonna be a whole lot to celebrate, but I'm sure the team would have loved, hey, we set the record for most points ever scored in a game. You have the Devontae Adams quotes about just the pursuit of greatness every time he plays. I thought they were gonna go for the record, and I had no problem with it. You've got a guy trying to give his team something to just, a little bit of positive momentum to take forward. And you have a guy that's trying to get himself a permanent coaching job. Well-deserved. Good for Antonio Pierce. One of the few cool stories this year. Well,
and I wanted you to go there too, because I was seeing some rumors on Twitter and the possibility of John Gruden making a return. So I think to both of your points that, and not just a return to coaching, but a return to Vegas. And I think it's something to take note of from what you guys are both saying about Antonio Pierce. This was the spot for him to run up the score to prove, like you're saying, that he's the guy. And he said too, he was a linebackers coach. He had a shot to go somewhere else, but he's from the area and he wants to stay on. He's a players coach. He relates to these guys. I'm happy that what he was saying when he was first hired. I'm happy that I can work with these guys. I've been working with this team for a while, and now I have a chance to coach them. I think if they're smart, you keep what's working. You like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And scoring 63 in a dog shit game that I don't think many people actually gave a shit about was special too. So that's going to be another story in the offseason as well. So that's all we got for you.
I think if you're Raiders ownership here, if you're sitting here and you're Mark Davis, I think you need to retain Antonio Pierce. I think to at least salvage whatever you have in your current locker room. Like, I think you have a hard time canning him to bring in John Gruden and keeping Devontae Adams happy. Like, I don't see it. The team has so clearly rallied around this guy, and I think that they've the team has essentially said, "This is our coach. Don't fuck this up."
Yep. Well, we got a Christmas Day game. The next time we'll be talking to you, Giants and Eagles on Christmas Day, as Tommy DeVito is officially going to be dead after, I don't mean actually, I mean from the game and the sacks. Will that be a massacre?
That's gonna be an ugly one, bro.
As we touched on the Giants, they are going to get absolutely stomped on. What a hell of a week 15. Thanks for joining us. CEO and founder of The Moonshot, Kenny McAndrews. Have a great Christmas. Thanks for always being here throughout this NFL season. Can't wait to talk to you soon.
You too, boys. Merry Christmas. Always a pleasure. Go Birds.
Oh, fuck Birds.
Take care, baby.
All right, no.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we bounced around all over. What a great show that was. A lot of great headlines. Got some injuries this week, but that's all that we have for you this week. At the end and the conclusion of week number 15, we have the Monday Night Football game tonight as we are recording on this Monday afternoon. If you did watch this episode on YouTube, make sure to drop a like, comment, and do not forget to hit that subscribe button. And our loyal audio listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, scroll to the bottom, give us those ratings. They do help the show out a lot. And if you want to connect with us on our social media platforms, pretty simple. Head to our Twitter at ADED Podcast. Our Instagram is at ADED Pod. And our TikTok is simply the name of the show. Another great week with Kenny McAndrews. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas from our annual holiday show. You've been listening and watching to the All Day Everyday Show with All Day AJ and Manny Ruffin. Hell of a time. Another week 15 in the books. And now we got Christmas. We'll see you post-Christmas. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.